Hi, I'm Josh Bowmar with Bowmar Bowhunting, and today we are going to dive into a massive mistake most archers make. And it's a mistake they don't even realize they're doing. A lot of you guys probably have this problem with your bow and you don't even know it. That is nock pinch or nock tuning, however you want to talk about it. But we are going to dive in on how to check for it and how to fix it if you do have nock pinch. Let's get started. So nock pinch, what is it? Nock fitting, does it really make a difference? Yes, it does, because you could have the most perfectly tuned bow, the most perfect arrow, perfect release, perfect everything, and still miss if this isn't perfect. So I'm going to show you guys how to check to see if your nock fit is perfect. Now, a lot of guys will come up here and they'll just say, oh yeah, you know what? I got a little wiggle room there. It doesn't spin my string. I'm good. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not always true, and I'm going to show you guys this. So the first thing you want to do to check to see if you do have nock pinch is to actually take your nock out of your arrow. So you're going to want to take your nock off your arrow. You can put your arrow down on the ground. Just throw that over there. And then you're going to put that nock in your D-loop by itself. You can see it's just kind of flopping around. It's kind of loose, but that's okay. Let's see what happens when we take it at full draw. So we're going to put this sucker in the draw board here. Okay, so what you're going to want to look for is the direction when this bow goes full draw with where that nock is pointing. So I'm just cranking her back, and now we are at full draw. And I want you to look at the direction of that nock. That sucker is pointing up. It needs to be pointing like this. You want it to be pointing flat, because now you're inducing nock torque. And so this is going to cause all kinds of issues. You're going to have to tune your bow around that problem. There's no reason to create an issue. And so I'm going to show you guys how to properly tie on a D-loop that will help with this. This D-loop I purposely tied on incorrectly. As you guys can see there, it's just a normal D-loop with no serving above or below. And what that does is that's going to cause downward pinch on your nock. And sometimes it turns off to the left or to the right, and that's going to cause some issues. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bow in the bow press, and again, you can do this without a press. You can just literally grab, this is more dangerous just because of dry firing issues, but you could draw this back and just kind of take a look like this. And then you can see, you're like, oh, okay. And then you can just let down. So you can draw and take a look. You don't need a draw press. I like a draw press because I've dry fired a few bows in my life. Not fun. Okay, so what happens is if you don't tie on your D-loop correctly, it's going to cause issues. So I'm going to show you guys how to do this. So let me just put this in here. I'm going to cut this D-loop off, and then I'm going to show you guys how I tie on a D-loop that will make that nock point straight down at your rest. Let's do it. So next up, we're going to tie serving onto the string here, and then we'll tie the D-loop around the serving. So there's actually a way that you can tie the serving to where it will force the nock to be perfectly parallel like this. So when the string angle comes down, if you don't use serving below, what will happen is the nock will naturally want to point up, which I showed you guys earlier. It'll naturally want to do this, which I know you're like, well, what the heck's the point? Who cares? Well, because then if you look at it like here and say this is your rest, well, if that nock's pointed up, that's not going to be very consistent on the actual rest itself. And so you're going to have a point weight on here which will keep it, but you're inducing an error into your arrow before you even release it. So there's no reason to have an arrow that will be inconsistent with its pressure on the nock. You want that sucker, if this is the rest, to be perfect in terms of pressure on the nock, and you want it to be the same every time. So I'm going to show you guys how to tie that on, and we're going to get started right now. So serving size, now you can ask your shop what they have available, but what I like to use, two different sizes of serving. I like to use 0.021 thousand serving, which you guys can see there, and I want the bigger serving on the bottom of the nock. Now this is important, again, because if you push on the bottom of the nock, if you can see this, if I push here, if I push on the bottom, it points the tip down. If I push on the top, it points the tip up. So you're going to want pressure on the bottom of the nock, because then it'll push it down, which again, whenever it's at full angle like this, it'll actually push it to parallel. So you want the bigger serving on the bottom, and then I'll use 0.014 on the top. And so I will tie in the bottom first, and you got to figure out where the knot goes. In certain bows, you can go right down the middle. In a Hoyt, you want it to be about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch high. So I know on my Matthews, I have it right down the center between the axles. So I'm just going to cut some serving off, and we're going to tie a knot in here. So the type of knot you use is actually very important too. So I like to use a constrictor knot. And this constrictor knot, I actually just did a video in epic detail and a lot of repetition on there, a lot of different angles for you guys to see on how to tie this. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on doing that, but you can click that link and probably right here or maybe over here, but you can click that link right there in order to watch this video after you finish this one, or the link is in the description. So I'm going to tie a constrictor knot. Now a constrictor knot, you can do 3 loops or 50 loops. I like to do a 6 loop constrictor knot on the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this will shrink down quite a bit. Now in that, if you do watch that video, you'll see in order to get the string underneath, you'll need to loosen this up like that and slide underneath here. And this is kind of how that looks. Just like that. So right here's where this is supposed to go. So another thing, you want to make sure your peep sight's in first, because it will, when you put the peep in, it will cause your string to rotate. And you're going to want to put your peep in before you do this, just because you want the knot to be down the center. If you want to come over top and look straight down, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You want this knot, when I cinch this sucker down tight, we're going to want that to be directly behind, because then you're not going to be hitting this and causing any sort of lateral deflection. So you want that sucker to be right down the back. Okay, so I'm going to cinch that sucker down just like I did. I'm going to cut it and burn it. Just like that. Burn this. Burn this. Make sure those are nice and tight in there. You can actually even burn that one just a tick more. There you go. Okay, so each bow is going to be a little bit different in terms of tightness. So I'm going to get my 14 thousandths here. I'm going to tie this on. I like to leave a little bit of wiggle room here. So again, on the top, so I did 6 on the bottom. 6 loop constrictor knot. Now on the top, I'm only going to do a 3 loop constrictor knot. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3. Again, if you want to watch the detailed video on how to tie this knot, it is in the description. I don't even know how that happened. There we go. Alright, so we'll pull this around here. And so this, what you want is you want just a tiny little bit of play. Nothing like crazy. Just enough. Just like a little bit of a wiggle. A little bit more, too much. There, that looks pretty good right in there. So you guys can see there's a little bit of play back in there. You can kind of see, and you want a little bit of play because as you pull this sucker tight, when this goes full draw at an angle, it will be a lot tighter. And so you want a little bit of play so it's not too aggressive. Cut and burn. Cinch that sucker down. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie my D-loop on. So I got this, it's going to fit really nice, and now I'm going to tie my D-loop on. You don't necessarily need to tie serving above. The most important is to have serving below. But the reason I tie mine above is because if your D-loop wears out, you can replace the D-loop, take this D-loop off, put a brand new one on, and everything will still be sighted in. Everything will be perfect just because the serving stays. So I have another video on how to tie in a D-loop and all the wrong ways to tie in a D-loop. I will put that link in the description as well. But I'm just going to tie this on real quick. You want the nail end, which is the melted end here. If you're right-handed, you want the nail end facing you on the bottom, and then the nail facing away from you on the top. Now again, in that D-loop video, I go into great detail on all the reasons why this is important, all of this. But basically, in a nutshell, you build a twist into the D-loop, which most archers that are shooting have a little twist in the D-loop already. So you build that in so you have less D-loop torque. So again, now I can just slide that right up to there. I'm just going to cinch that sucker down. And there you go. You can obviously see, this is important to see. You can see that the serving on the bottom, it's got a little bit of play there. You can see that play really nicely. Okay, and you can see the serving on the bottom is bigger than the serving on top. That is important, because if it wasn't, this sucker would be pointing like that at full draw. But now it'll be pointing straight down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this bow out of the press. We are going to go full draw and see where that nock is pointing. Again, guys, hitting a bullseye is already really hard. You don't want to let something like a stupid nock fitting be the reason you miss your big buck, or the reason you shoot it in the butt, or hit it high in no man's land and the neighbor ends up killing it, or you miss it and the neighbor kills it, all because of something so stupid. So again, this is important. I know this seems kind of crazy, but this tip right here can save you on forgiveness and save you on potentially hitting a bullseye or not. So this is important. So let's see if it worked. So we're gonna just stick this sucker in now, and then we're gonna draw her back. And the goal is to have it pointing straight back to the arrow. So there you got it. So that's pointing now straight back at the nock. You can see the pressure from the bottom, and then if I push it in, which is how this activates, you can really see it right there. So that is what you want. You want it to be straight, and that'll help you keep that pressure obviously right on the rest, which is perfect. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tip. I know nock fitting is something that doesn't really get talked about a lot, and it's actually a really big deal. So I hope you guys go and check all of your nocks right now. Check your D-loop, and if it's off, take it to the shop, have them replace it, or you can watch how to tie your own D-loop and in the video that's in the description there. So again, guys, there's a lot of reasons to miss a bullseye, and it's hard enough to do with a perfect shot. So don't let something like nock pinch keep you from wearing out the center. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Right now is a great time to do it because we are giving away a 7-animal 6-day African safari hunt to one lucky subscriber when we hit 200,000 followers. So make sure to go up there and hit the subscribe button. And while you're there, turn on the bell notifications so you're always tuned into our channel. As always, Sarah and I are very grateful for your support.